Hey folks, I'm Rick Biswalis, and along with Fantasy Sports Writer Association Hall of Famer Greg Kellogg, we host the Sports Affiliation Thursday Checkdown. Our focus is on helping you be more successful in your fantasy football leagues and, more importantly, to have fun doing so. Because, as Greg says, if you're not having fun, why do it? So tonight's special guest needs no introduction. We have Howard Bender of Fantasy Alarm and SiriusXM as our guest. And hi, Howard. Welcome. Producer got me on now.
And Howard's almost as bad at music as Bob Harris.
Wow.
Not quite, but almost. But here, I'm a bebopper. I like the bebop. I really do. So.
Oh, no. Now, Bob is in a whole new world between the guitar work he does and the music and the T-shirts, he is just, but Grateful Dead.
You gotta love him anyway, though, right?
Well, I mean, what Bob listens to now is what I used to listen to when I was like 13 or 14 years old. My taste grew a little bit, and found the Dead and Fish and a whole other mix. So
I was 13 in 1968. I was listening to the Beatles, man.
Nice. I can definitely get behind that. I can get behind the Beatles, the Stones, anything classic rock, really. The Kinks, one of the most underrated bands out there.
Well, I don't even want to say what music I listen to, but Charlie Rich was one of my favorites. So.
I remember Perry Como. It was amazing.
On YouTube.
I'm not that old.
Amazing.
I'm not that old.
YouTube is amazing. Today, I actually heard a video on YouTube, one of the little reels, of some singer that took Beat It, Michael Jackson's Beat It, and made it a country song. And that, if you can take Michael Jackson's Beat It, same lyrics, same basic melody, although changed a bit, and turn it into a country western song, I tell you, musicians, they have a mind that is unique.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about music, but Howard, big fan of yours, and I know I speak for the people in the audience that we're just really happy that you agreed to be a guest on our show. I know most people in fantasy football know your entire background, but we might have one or two new players or one or two people who don't quite know you. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from, where you're currently located, and we'll just go ahead and start learning a little bit more about Howard.
All right. I'm originally from New York, lived in New York City for a very, 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 very long time. Went upstate to college and, I came back into New York. I was actually originally in theater, doing some stand-up. I was in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I just didn't really enjoy, pounding the pavement, in the acting world. Kind of got caught up in bartending, and then, in a poker game I was at, a friend of mine said that his dad was starting up a fantasy baseball league and wanted to know if we would be interested in joining. And that was right there in the late 90s where the internet was just blowing up fantasy sports. After a while of just, having some fun in my 20s and even in my early 30s too, I ended up just reading a bunch of the stuff on the websites, and, I was winning leagues and feeling good about it. And I said, you know what, this is something that I could do. I'd like to give it a try. So I freelanced for a number of years, and then ended up with fantasy baseball was my first, and then fantasy football came afterwards. And so I was freelancing for a number of years. I started up my own website, my own blog at that point there. And then basically I turned to the three sites that I was doing the most work for: Fantasy Alarm, RotoWire, and Fangraphs. And I said, I want to do this full time. If you've got some full-time employment, first company that jumps, jumped, and the guys over at RotoWire actually jumped first, but they were like, "You got to move to Milwaukee." It's like, I'm sorry, I love you guys, but I am not moving to Milwaukee at all. So,
RotoWire was a much bigger site back then too.
RotoWire is huge. One of the top ones. Like, I guess it was it like RotoWire and RotoWorld were actually like working together, and they actually separated. And one went behind a paywall, and one went free advertising. So, but then Fantasy Alarm asked me if I wanted to head up their news and notes department, and I said absolutely. So I started working full time in the industry. I don't even remember exactly what year it was, but started doing that. Started working on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, and it's all kind of exploded from there. So that's where I'm at, and I'm all over on social media at RotoBuzz Guys. You can see below. And all my work I do at Fantasy Alarm. I also do some work for rtsports.com, and I do some work over at the New York Post as well. I'm a weekly columnist for fantasy sports over in the New York Post, which is really kind of funny because I didn't get the job at the New York Post until I moved out of New York City.
Yeah. Very weird. Now, for those that don't know, I've been giving Howard a hell of a time about his recent move because I grew up in Michigan and I know what it's like to shovel snow. So the question I've got is, do you shovel or do you have a snow blower?
Well, it's kind of funny that you asked that. I do have a snow blower, and that snow blower is actually sitting in the backyard shed, buried under about 5 feet of snow. So it's not really that accessible. That's right. I did. Last year in July, the end of July, I moved to Alaska. My wife and I went from New York to the Bay Area for about 18 years. And then we moved up north to Alaska. The two of us, we just fell in love with the city of Juneau and the people up here. And, we're both cold weather people. We're built for comfort, not for speed. So we were very, very happy to, not have like the crazy heat that all of a sudden the Bay Area was absorbing. We're just not hot weather people. So we came north to Alaska. And funny enough, here in our first winter in Juneau, record snowfall right now. They haven't seen this much snow dumped on the city of Juneau since the 1970s. So
folks, if you're not following Howard, do so now. He's got his Twitter handle right there, RotoBuzz Guy. Follow him because he has some of the greatest free content you can get. Follow him on Instagram. Is it RotoBuzz Guy on Instagram as well?
It's RotoBuzz Guy on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Instagram. There's a RotoBuzz Guy page on Facebook if that's your bag. And if you're a TikToker, you can go to @TheRealRotoBuzz Guy.
Okay, now the reason I say follow him is because I get his free Instagram posts. Notice I said free. I'm a cheap bastard. Okay. I get his free Instagram posts. And today he gave a piece of advice that to those of us that have been doing this for 30, 40 years is kind of common sense to us. But to a lot of the new people, it's not. Please tell them what you put out about Dallas Goedert and why you should take him.
So the NFL playoff contests are absolutely all the rage right now. And I play in the FFPC playoff challenge, which I'm just a huge fan of. And that format is you're choosing one player from each team, right? To fill out a lineup of 12 people, that quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 wide receivers, 4 flex, a tight end, a kicker, and a defense. So you have to fade 2 teams and not take anybody from those teams, and then one from each other position. So in a contest like this, you have to, there's always going to be some chalk plays, some plays that everybody's going to want, everybody's going to have. And it's usually guys like Puka Nacua or Christian McCaffrey, some of those top high-end guys. But when you do a contest like this with as many entries as there are in it, you have to get a little weird. You have to get a little contrarian to figure out what's best, to just differentiate yourself from the rest of the herd. If 80% of the lineups are going to have Christian McCaffrey. Well, I want a guy who I think is going to pop, but I want him at like 15%, 20% at the most. If I can get it even lower. Last year, the big winner had it was Jaden Daniels at like 3.7%. So on the video today, I talked about how everybody's going to get Jalen Hurts and everybody's going to use Saquon Barkley, and Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are also going to be fairly chalky guys. Take a look at Dallas Goedert. Not only in this format is it tight end premium, and so he gets some extra work, but if you look at what Dallas Goedert has done over the last 3 games and the way that Jalen Hurts has utilized him inside the red zone, it's a nice sneaky play. He has the chance to basically outscore every other tight end on this slate. And if he goes further in towards the Super Bowl and gets multiple games, it's even better. Like George Kittle's in a terrible matchup this week, right?
Toughest defense against.
They're supposed to lose too. They're picked to lose.
Everybody's talking about San Francisco losing. So, who's the next best tight end? Is it Dalton Schultz over with Houston? And how many games are they going to get? So I look at Dallas Goedert as a guy who it goes against what a lot of people are doing. But again, if I can get my tight end in for multiple games in this format, that's going to be a move that's going to move me up the ladder in the standings, as opposed to Saquon Barkley having a great week and then I just kind of keep pace with the field.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got to ask you, because it's on my sheet to ask you this. Rick gave me the move questions, supposedly, because he knows how I feel about Alaska. My daughter and I went up there fishing there in June, and it was cold in June. So, and I'm a warm weather guy. I like the heat. So, what prompted you to move to Alaska? Was it job? Was it opportunity? Was it the fact that you don't pay state income taxes? They pay you? I mean, what was it that got you up there? And do you ever regret leaving the Frisco Bay Area?
Oh, no, I zero regrets. Moving up here to Juneau was probably, listen, moving across country from New York to San Francisco was a very strong move that we did, and a very positive one for me, just work-wise and world-wise. But I wasn't a huge fan of the Bay Area. I wasn't a huge fan of just a lot of things about it.
I like Monterey.
Monterey's gorgeous, right?
Monterey.
I'll go hang out in Monterey, and I'll take in the sights. I'll treat my glaucoma, and I'll go to the aquarium over there. Absolutely beautiful. But for it was great for us in the Bay Area because my wife got a job as the general manager of a nightclub, and then the owner of that nightclub basically sold her the club and gave it to her. When COVID hit, we had to close down the club because of, obviously the payroll and everything. And you had no idea. The Entertainment Commission in San Francisco was just shut everything down. And it was impossible to kind of stay ahead of it because you couldn't book acts ahead of time because you had no idea when shelter in place was going to stop. So we knew we were closing down the club. We knew I could work from anywhere as long as I have internet. And the two of us were sitting there and we were just kind of talking, and we threw in Alaska into the conversation. Dare I say, maybe we were watching The Proposal with Ryan Reynolds and Sam at that point and thought, hey, why don't we move to Sitka? It looks beautiful up there. So that was kind of what put it on our radar, but we'd always been talking about wanting to do an Alaskan cruise and really go spend some time up there a bunch. So we decided when we had to move, my landlord, we're lifelong renters. And because I'm not a handyman, I actually really appreciate the fact that I'm a lifelong renter. But we had to move because our landlord needed the place for his family. So we looked at each other and we said, if we're really going to do this, if we're going to move to Alaska, let's do it right. And we got a place nearby from, in the Bay Area still for a year and made all of our plans to move up to Alaska. We came up in March. We met with some realtors, ended up meeting a couple who had the house that they were going to want to rent. And it all just kind of, everything from the universe pointed us towards there, and everything just kind of fell into place so perfectly that we did it. We had to make that move, and we love it up here. It's beautiful.
As someone who moved from the San Francisco Bay Area to Houston, it was a big change. It was a big change climate-wise. It was a big change cultural. Just everything about the change was huge. I could imagine it was a big change going from San Francisco Bay Area to Alaska. With all those same factors. What were the things that were the hardest for you to get used to? And what were some of the things you just weren't thinking of at the time, and it became just, one of the things you liked the most about Juneau and Alaska?
Well, I mean, it's kind of funny that you bring it in that way, Rick, because when you're born and raised in New York, it's just, you're a totally different animal. There's always a sense of urgency. There's always, I got to get it done. And just, I don't want to waste time. I just have stuff to do. And when I moved from New York to San Francisco, there was a lack of any kind of urgency whatsoever. It was very, very, laid back people, but there was also this sense of entitlement with a complete lack of accountability. Mm-hmm. I know that there are Bay Area people who hate when I say that, but that was really what my experience was in San Francisco. When we moved up to Juneau, when we visited Juneau in March, and this realtor who I was adamant and said to him, I'm not going to buy a house here now. We're looking to rent, and this is what we want to do. And he still spent like a good hour with us in his office, gave me the list of, property managers and people to talk to and to go check it all out. And about 15 minutes after we left his office, I had gotten a text from him. And basically, after a couple of texts back and forth, he was like, you know what? I think I've got a line on a place for you. It's that willingness. It's that sense of community that Juneau has. And this is something that my wife and I definitely craved. We want to put down roots. We want to be a part of the community. I want to do Scott Fishbowl Juneau up here and run a bunch of charity drafts and, for like things, local, Juneau Animal Rescue and the fire department. I've got a fireman who lives a couple houses down from me now. There's such a beautiful sense of community up here that definitely, where I lived in the Bay Area, there were more no trespassing signs than there were welcome mats. Hmm. And here up in Juneau, since my wife and I have been here and we've gone through, flooding of the Mendenhall River and more snow in the last 50 years and all of that, everybody is just still willing to help you out, talk you through it, give you, advice, pointers, everything like that. It's just, that has been the most overwhelming part for me here in Juneau. And it's one of the reasons, that's what I've craved. I've craved that. It's like small town living, but you're in a city of 50,000 people.
That sounds great. And as someone who's always wanted to go to Alaska, I'm an avid fisherman. I would, love to go up there, and not as much for the salmon, but for grayling, which
well, the halibut is huge.
Uh-huh.
I got a halibut that's basically 5 foot. I caught a 5 foot halibut.
And I fish for the halibut. Oh no, that was bad. Sorry. Well, Greg, I know we could talk and learn more about Howard for, hours.
Well, I got to ask him one question before we get to our primary topic. Howard agreed to join us to talk about blocking. Is blocking sleazy or strategy? And I know what he's going to say, but I still feel sleazy because I did it. And I'll explain what blocking is. But Howard you got a wonderful looking dog who loves the snow. Did he come from San Francisco to Alaska, or did you get him up there in Alaska?
So we've got 3 pups. We drove up here. They're all from a rescue called Norsled, over in the Bay Area. Excuse me, Northern California Sled Dog Rescue. And so all three of our dogs we brought with us from the Bay Area, but one is an Alaskan Husky, another one is a Husky Shepherd, and then the other one, which is the one I think you're, the one who won't come in during the snowstorm.
Yeah.
She is a quarter Husky, a quarter Shepherd, a quarter Malamute, and a quarter Gray Wolf. So she is so at home up here. It's hysterical. It's like buckets and buckets of snow are falling down there, and there she is, just laying out there, just loving life. So, yeah, they are.
I'm a dog person, so I love seeing your dog pictures. Keep them coming, Howard.
Oh, I definitely will. I definitely will.
So I'm hoping everybody got one of these this year. This is a championship ring for 2025. We got it from Crown Champions. Okay. But the way I got it, I feel sleazy about. And I'll be honest. I picked up redraft league. So it's championship game. It's Sunday. I know on Monday night, he's got 2 players and I got 2 players, and he's got a 5-point lead going into Sunday night football. Okay. I've got CMC going Monday night, and I don't remember who the other guy Stafford. I have Stafford and CMC, and he's got Devontae Adams, who's doubtful for the game, and Kyle Pitts. And so I decided to go out because I figured Devontae Adams is doubtful. He's likely not to play. Who are the players available that he could replace Devontae with to get points? Because he already had a lead. Now, I didn't know CMC was going to go off Sunday night and give me the points I needed to win the game outright. So I didn't want to take a chance. So I picked up 4 players, including Kobe Parkinson and Mumford and 2 other wide receivers. Okay. 3 wide receivers. No intention on playing them. I dropped guys that I would never drop to get these guys like Justin Herbert. I didn't use him that week. Season's over. I don't need him anymore. And guys like that to get these guys. So it was a pure blocking move. Now, I know Rick, every time I raise this, he says it's strategy. So I know how he feels. I'm pretty sure you feel the same way. But why do I feel sleazy picking up players I have no intention of using?
I don't know why you feel sleazy doing it. To me, it's a strategy. I mean, you can be like, oh, well, I want him to be able to put forth his best lineup, but this is a championship week. There's no reason that you should feel sleazy about it. You're making the moves. Listen, if he was paying more attention or better attention to the status of Devontae Adams, well, then he would have picked up somebody and had like a nice little
on Friday.
Yeah, he would have had a Monday night pivot. That's the thing. See, that's the thing about it. And I've preached this over and over and over again. If you're walking into a week, and I mean, if you're walking into the Thursday night game, all right, and you're looking at the rest of your lineup, if you have somebody going on Monday Night Football and that player is banged up in any way, I don't care if it's an illness, stubbed his toe, contact lens problem, whatever the case may be, you need to make sure that you have a pivot in case your guy doesn't go. That's just smart fantasy football. And if you don't do that, well, then, yeah, I think you're well within your rounds here to do, especially for championship week. Like, how careless is he on that one for not doing it for championship week? So you making those moves and picking up all those guys, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Don't feel sleazy at all. Don't.
Well, would you, a quick follow-up question. I believe that if I've got players playing Monday night, I want them in the flex position rather than in the position, because I think it's easier to replace them with a flex player than it is with a position player.
Yes.
So he had him as a wide receiver. I didn't even have to pick up the tight end. I did that because by Saturday, he could have switched it around. He still had a choice Saturday to switch one of the players around. What do you think about that? Should players that are playing late in the week be in your flex position if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of funny because yeah, we've been doing this for a while. We've been doing this for decades
Or there were
basically,
flex positions.
right? Right before there were flex positions. Like these are the little nuances that we kind of take for granted. It's funny, we talk about this on Fantasy Alarm all the time. The people who are listening to us on the radio, for a lot of those players are high end players, high end in the sense that they're experienced. It has nothing to do with stakes. It's just that their level of experience is very strong. Or we have like Bob from accounting, who just thought it'd be cool to join the office league this year and be able to have a conversation around the office, around the water cooler, and be able to talk about. He might not know anything about football or anything like that. Those are the fantasy players who I want to talk to, right? Because those are the fantasy players that when you teach them something like, if you've got a player playing on Monday Night Football, you put him in your flex position because in case he gets hurt, because there's practices on Saturday too, in case something happens, he's easier to replace. And I think that that's one of the more underrated things that, a lot of fantasy analysts right now kind of take for granted and don't really kind of single it out. Somebody will screenshot you their lineup and they'll be like, well, what do you think? And I'd be like, well, I think you should move player X into your flex position because of his injury. And then they're like, oh, I never thought of that. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, that's a great move right there to help people out with.
Yeah, the converse rule, of course, is on Thursday night you don't play players in the flex position, so that you leave that flexibility, throughout the rest of the game schedule. So,
it's your turn, Rick.
Well, again, I think
if you don't have another question, I got one more for him before we go to the next segment.
Yeah, my only comment would be that, you're responsible for your own team and making that team better, the whole time. So, and better in the sense of, improving your chances to win and win, not just this week, but, somewhere down the road as well. So you should not be feeling guilty at all about making moves that make your team better. And so when I first heard the question, I was thinking, well, gee, we're probably going to be able to talk about that for 5 minutes, because I think we're all going to agree. Yeah, you're not, you're playing the way it should be played and not.
I think it depends on your level of competition. I'm in a local league up here, and some of these guys aren't real experienced. And so me doing that ensured that I got the win, which is nice.
But it also taught them,
Well, it does. It's not a money league. I'm not taking anybody's money because I do free leagues only. But yeah, I took the ring, and
it's important. And it's an elementary school league, and I know that you're
okay. Now we do want to talk a little bit about the playoff games because we got Howard on. But Howard, you know me. You've known me for a while. I talk about the curse of 370 a lot. And a lot of people think that's stupid. Okay? There's no such thing as a curse. Well, if you look at history, there is such a thing. It may not be a curse. It may just be fatigue, stress fatigue from getting hit so much that previous year. But this year, it looked for a while like James Cook was going to get there, but he didn't make it. He needed 30 touches last week to get there, and he didn't get there. But we have 3 players that got real close to 370 touches or went over. CMC, 413 touches. All right. Christian McCaffrey, I will not draft next year because he won't fall to the 4th round. I think he'll be valuable when he's on the field, but I don't think he'll be on the field. I think he'll miss games next year because of the curse of 370. Jonathan Taylor had 369 touches. Now, that's as close as you can get without getting 370. If he had 370, I would definitely not draft him because it's just there's very few cases of where a player got 370 touches and actually matched or exceeded his previous year's numbers. And then Bijan Robinson ended up with 366. Are you downgrading any or all of those players next year to the point where you would not take them in the first and potentially the second round?
But the funny thing is about that, Greg, is we've kind of been saying that same thing about CMC over and over again, right? Over the years. And he does have an injury history, but when CMC in a year that he does stay healthy, right? Like he's unstoppable. The offense goes right through him. So, but now, yeah, after that kind of a workload again, and he was perfectly healthy all season long. Am I a little gun shy next year about him? I definitely am. Again, I've always thought that, CMC, it's, little smaller. Maybe they should use him in the outside zone a little bit more. Maybe don't use him as often in inside zone and hope to spare him some of the wear and tear. I feel like they've managed that somewhat, but yeah, when a guy has a peak season like that, it's very tough for me to go back to him anyway, just because there is so much wear and tear, right? And I always, I'm always like, well, is this a guy who I think is going to plateau at this level? Maybe even has a little bit something else in the tank, and therefore, if my answer is yes, then I'll just go and reinvest in him next year, depending on what the price tag is. A guy like Jonathan Taylor will cost a first round pick next year. Am I interested in him? No, probably not. But a guy like Bijan Robinson, who I think is built a little differently than Jonathan Taylor, and they'll utilize Bijan on the outside a lot more and use him as a pass catcher a lot more than they do with Jonathan Taylor, right? He's like a north-south guy, right? Yeah, you've seen him catch a couple of passes or whatever, but he's a north-south guy. So, I do worry about it. I rarely go back to a guy when he has a career year, unless I definitely think that this is a player who is on an upward trajectory and not just like peak fall. So McCaffrey, age-wise, not going to draft him where he's going to be going. Taylor probably won't be drafting him where he's going, but Bijan, I'm a sucker for him, and I'll draft him every day, all day, if I can, in the first round.
And the history
so for me, Bijan, second round, I'll take him, not before.
Well, then you won't have any Bijan.
Well, I might have some Bijan. I won't have.
No, you won't.
He will not be there in the.
But I will take Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. Does the change of coaches impact your decision at all, especially not knowing who the coaches are going to be right now?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Listen, I write a series of articles in the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide every single year where I break down the offense and the defense of each team and coaching tendencies and everything like that. I do a lot of my research when the coaches have landed, right? Like the NFL draft doesn't really intrigue me all that much, but once the players are on a team and I know how they're going to fit into that offense, well, then it's a much different story for me. Like I want to see where, Clint Kubiak and his ground game, where's that going to end up? Who's going to be doing that? Who's going to be the coach that's going to continue to develop Jackson Dart? That's what I want to see.
Who's going to get Harbaugh? Harbaugh I heard that they're fired. That amazes me.
Which is funny because I actually think that Stefanski's better for Jackson Dart's development than Harbaugh. Harbaugh needs to bring in a really, really strong offensive coordinator because Harbaugh's a defensive-minded guy.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, I took a lot of crap on Facebook today because I said Lamar Jackson has obvious deficiencies. And I'm not talking about athleticism. I'm talking about mental deficiencies as a quarterback. He struggles reading the defenses. They tend to design the offense around his shortcomings. And depending on who the coach is in Baltimore, we'll see what happens with Lamar Jackson. But you would be amazed at how negative people get when you talk bad about their quarterback. They do not like me talking bad about Lamar Jackson, but Google him. Google Lamar Jackson deficiencies and it'll spell it out for you.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson had, I think, the first 4 or 5 games he was really strong. I was getting up in the 30-point fantasy point range for the first couple. Then, of course, injuries, and especially towards the tail end of the year, it seemed like he was getting a lot of lower body injuries almost every game. But I still think Lamar Jackson's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and it probably will require a more passing oriented offense for him to make that next step. And hopefully he'll be able to rely more on his arm and less on.
At this point, there is no next step for him. If he runs, he's going to put up fantasy points. He's going to be a great fantasy quarterback if he uses his legs. If he doesn't, if he's a pure pocket passer, which he's never been in his career,
and he would, he's not going to be a pocket passer, throughout his career.
No, you just
wanted to get back to the curse of 370 because the history of running backs, especially, you go back as far back as Eric Dickerson in 1983, his rookie year. He had 390 attempts, 1,800 yards. The next year, he had 379 carries with 2,100 yards. He did dip to only 1,234 in his third year, but then his fourth year, 404 attempts and 1,821. Now, maybe he was just the outlier, but
would you say Walter Payton is a good running back or was a good running back?
Sure, but physically a lot different type of running back than Eric Dickerson was.
He had 5 seasons with 370 plus touches. 2 of them, he actually went up the next year. 3 of them, he went down. You have LaDainian Tomlinson's the guy that gets mentioned the most as the outlier. And he did have some outlying seasons. It's not perfect. It's not every back, but 90% of backs that get 370 touches drop the next year. And the drop is significant. It's 25 to 45%. I've seen 100%. One of them was because a guy held out the next year and didn't play. That's a 100% drop after a 370 touch season. Had nothing to do with injury or anything else. He just didn't play. Others have been hurt. I think the average missed games is something like 8 games after a 370 season, 370 touch season. So, but some of them just don't. Look at Saquon Barkley. He did not miss time this year. Would you say he performed up to the level he had last year?
Oh, no, he didn't. And not to the level
25% down. 25% down for Saquon.
Right, but part and parcel of that, you also have to take into account the fact that they talked about load management for Saquon Barkley this season as well. Like if you were drafting Saquon Barkley in the first round this year, expecting him to repeat or come close to repeating what he did the year before, the coaching staff told you that wasn't going to happen already. They told you that.
Howard, coach speak. You know as well as I do, they don't always do what they say they're going to do.
No, of course not, but they still did it. They still did it.
How many fewer touches does he have this year? And are those touches as effective or less effective than last year? I mean, if you just break it down on the effectiveness,
if that's the case,
efficient.
yes, he was less impactful this season. He was not as explosive as he was last year. That is 100% true. But again, you were told that, there's some guys who just thrive off volume. Explain Derrick Henry.
Truth is, most fantasy guys draft based entirely on last year's stats. Because if you go to Sleeper app, that's what you're going to see. You're going to watch who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in Sleeper next year.
Puka Nacua will be.
It's going to be Puka Nacua. Is going to be number 1 next year.
In
the preseason rankings. In the preseason rankings. JSN's probably going to be number 2 with Chase number 3. That order. Maybe Amon-Ra sneaks in. But basically, those 4 are going to be your top 4. I'm telling you, Puka may repeat what he did. He's got everything still in place to do it. JSN is not going to repeat next year. I just don't believe that. I don't, because Kubiak's leaving. His offensive coordinator's leaving. And that's going to impact that Seattle team.
Of course it will. But, I mean, Kubiak is still, he's more of a run first guy also. I mean,
yeah, but that sets up the pass.
Of course it does. Of course it does. But I mean, if you're going to bring in an offensive coordinator, to really kind of increase the passing volume, then maybe JSN makes it up on volume as opposed to relying on, the running backs to kind of set up that passing work. So
with Sam Darnold at quarterback?
All right? Here's what I want to know. What's wrong with Sam Darnold at quarterback? Here's a kid who got no chance with the Jets whatsoever because they were terrible and they wouldn't surround him with anything good. Then what does he do? He goes away. Where does he go to? He goes to, was it San Francisco?
Minnesota.
No, it was Carolina next. It was Carolina.
Okay.
And in Carolina, he was whatever. He was average. He was just a backup. They weren't really relying on him at all. He goes to San Francisco and he works with Kyle Shanahan in that system. And all of a sudden, it's a whole different ball game for him, right? That San Francisco system that Kyle Shanahan runs really helps develop quarterbacks. It builds up their confidence. It increases their completion percentage. They rely more heavily on the short, high percentage passing work.
It's the Bill Walsh system. It's the West Coast offense. It teaches you how to read defenses.
And then he
goes to O'Connell, who turns him into a star.
Well, that's the thing. O'Connell pass heavy scheme there, and Darnold goes in and he balls out completely. Now he goes over to Seattle, right? And he signs his contract over there, but he gets a run heavy scheme, offensive coordinator in Kubiak. If you're telling me that you're going to put in, let's say, for example, a guy like Kevin Stefanski, even though Stefanski is going to be a head coach, I'm trying to think of a good offensive-minded guy, right? Like Ryan Grubb, I think he got a raw deal in Seattle, right? But if you bring in a guy like that who loves to feature the run, loves to focus in on one receiver, look at what Ryan Grubb actually did for JSN. Because what you saw then was it was originally supposed to be DK Metcalf was supposed to be the guy. And the first 2-3 weeks of the season, DK Metcalf was rock solid. He was beautiful. And then he got hurt. And so all of a sudden, JSN became the featured receiver in Ryan Grubb's offense. And he exploded. And
with
then when
a lot of play action
back,
as well,
they were like,
right?
Yeah. So
the play action, what's the play action do for receivers? Gives them more time to get further down the field and get longer routes.
Yeah. So you can't say that JSN's not going to repeat what he did when you don't know who the offensive coordinator is. If he comes back with a conservative offensive coordinator, well, then maybe he doesn't. But if you come back with somebody who's a little bit more of a gunslinging kind of guy.
Yeah, but like you say, the guys that have career years rarely repeat those years.
So, speaking of Seattle and the playoffs, there might be a few people who are interested in our thoughts on the 6 games that are in the this weekend coming up. And
let's start with the Rams first. Rams, Carolina. Tell us who's going to win, and pick one player you're interested in seeing in that game.
I think the Rams are going to win this one, despite the fact that they lost in week 13 to the Carolina Panthers. Don't ever forget that, people. Don't ever forget that. But I'm looking at Kyren Williams in this one here. I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Obviously, the defense is going to focus in on Puka Nacua. You're going to probably see J.C. Horn probably shadow him. Maybe they float a safety in there also to help bracket. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at there. Kyren Williams running the football, this is why Mike LaFleur had given Blake Corum so much work. He even said it specifically. He's like, I'm going to give Blake Corum more work because I want Kyren Williams' legs to be fresh for the playoffs. So this is where he unleashes them.
All right. How about you, Rick?
Well, I actually think that the Rams will win this one in a rout. Again, yeah, the Rams lost against the Panthers early in the season, but we are now in the playoffs. The one player on the Panthers I like a lot is Tetroa McMillan. But I don't think I would start Young. I wouldn't start Dowdell. Wouldn't start Hubbard. The one player on that team I would be even thinking about starting would be McMillan.
Okay, well, for me, I think the Rams are going to win as well, and I like Stafford. If I'm choosing a quarterback, I want Stafford this week because I think that he could be a player for what. I remember back when he was with Detroit, and he got Detroit a playoff win with a separated shoulder. The opposing team called a timeout when they took him out of the game with the separated shoulder, and he's on the sideline shouting, "They called timeout. I can go back in. I can go back in." And his coach is saying, and he's saying, "I can throw the ball. You just need me to throw." And he throws a touchdown pass that wins that game. It's gutsiest play I've ever seen by any player in the NFL. Next game.
Black and blue division.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Black and blue division.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, Green Bay at Chicago. Howard, winner and a player.
I'll tell you what, man.
That's a tough game. This is
a tough game because I hate the way that Caleb Williams gets off to a slow start every single game. And they rely on the comeback trail, and I think that that's kind of problematic. But I'm still going to lean the Bears here, and kind of support. Oh, don't be like that.
Iggy's
Iggy's a Packers guy. I know. Well, then I'll say this: the player I want to single out then is Christian Watson. Last time he played against the Bears, thank you very much. The last time he played the Bears, it was like 80 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. He's one of those great outlier guys who, if you're doing like a one and done contest this year, right? Like he's a great first week. If you think that the Bears are going to beat the Packers, Watson is like your ideal play at wide receiver.
All right, Rick?
Yeah, I kind of think this is going to be a game, and I agree. I think Watson would be the Packer I'd be most interested in. Jacobs, though, and I think Swift and Monangai I think this is going to be a running battle, even though I think there's 2 good passing offenses. Also a little bit worried about the Chicago defensive backs. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson's likely out with a concussion, so that may really open up opportunities for Love going to Watson.
Okay, well, for me, I think Chicago wins it. But to win it, they have got to establish the running game. Now, the reason I think they're going to win it, normally I would have gone with Packers here, even though it's an away game for them. But the Packers seem to be a little bit beat up right now, on defense especially. And I think Chicago is going to emphasize the run early. So Monangai is actually the one I want to see. It's well known I despise DeAndre Swift. I just don't like him because he was with the Lions, and I've always considered him soft. Monangai is anything but soft at the running back. If they can get that kid running and going, then I think Caleb Williams with play action is going to have some success. They should have a Dunze back, so the passing game, and I think they've got the best young tight end in football in Colston Loveland, and not just because he's a Michigan alum, but because he's just a really good tight end. So the next game is Buffalo at Jacksonville. What you got, Howard?
This is one of 2 games that I'm really kind of like torn on a bunch, and because my heart says go with the Jags. They're fun. They're exciting. Liam Cohen's offense, everything's gelling at just the right time. And then you turn around, you look at like Buffalo's experience, Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. Guy like James Cook is just an absolute beast. And I know that the Jags have a really good, front 7 here, but can they stop, the Allen, Allen train with James Cook? So I'm very, very torn on that one. I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to say the Jags win this one, and I'll throw out like, how about Parker Washington, right? Maybe Jacoby Myers being on the team has kind of clicked in something for this offense, but Parker Washington seems to be the guy who has taken most advantage of it, and he's been absolutely explosive. I think he's been what everybody kind of hoped Brian Thomas would be this year, but wasn't.
Rick?
I think the Bills win, and like Howard said it right. With your heart, you want to really root for Jacksonville. They've been the surprise team, underappreciated team. I think they're great offense and defense, maybe the best balanced team in football right now. But and if they're going to win, I think they have to get it from Etienne. The Bills give up a lot of points to running back position. So if there is a way that they're going to win, it's going to have to require a big game from Etienne.
Okay, well, for me, I'm picking the Jags. I know the Bills are favored, but I like the Jags, and I do like Etienne a lot in this game. I don't think the Bills have played up to their potential the last 3-4 weeks of the season, and the Jags are hot, so I'm going with the Jags. Next game up is San Francisco at Philadelphia. Now, I'm going with the home team, but I want to know what Howard says.
Yeah, I'm kind of I was hoping that San Francisco was going to be putting up a better showing, but defensively, I just don't like them right now. And they lost Tatum Bethune, who was the linebacker who was filling in for Fred Warner. That seems to be a very key component to San Francisco's defense, that when they end up losing that guy, like the over the middle passing, the tight end coverage, it always kind of falls apart. So you got a lot of experience here on both sides with Shanahan versus Sirianni. Sorry, blanked on his name there. But I think I'm gonna lean towards Philadelphia here as being a total package team. Things seem to have been gelling for them at the right moment towards the end of the season.
Rick?
I agree. It's going to be the Eagles. The Eagles' strengths are the 49er offensive strengths are going up against an even stronger defense. CMC and Kittle are going against like the top 2 or 3 defense on running backs, and the toughest defense on tight end. So as much as I like Purdy, I think this is going to be a Eagles game, and I've heard the name Goddard. I think he's going to especially have a big game today.
Okay, so for me, I think it's going to be Eagles. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think the Fred Warner loss was huge on that defense. And if you're in a guillotine type league for playoffs, get CMC in, because you're not going to get a second chance, I don't think. My player to watch in this is, I think Jalen Hurts has 2 touchdowns rushing this game. LA Chargers at New England. Howard?
I think this one's going to be a low-scoring, tough little battle here, but I'm going to side with the Patriots. I like what Mike Vrabel's doing with them. I love what I've seen out of Drake May. Absolutely spectacular. It really has been, good. They've got a good double, running back tandem there in Henderson and Stevenson. They've got decent pass-catching targets here for Drake May. I do like, Jim Harbaugh, and I like the Chargers. I'm a big fan of Justin Herbert. But, I also, Omarion Hampton didn't practice again on Friday, or on Thursday. So I don't know if he's even going to play in this game here. So I think it just kind of takes out a little bit of an element. You're also dealing with the travel from the West Coast to the East Coast for the Chargers. So I'm going to say that it's going to be a close one here with the Patriots winning. And if I had to pick a player to really just kind of dominate, I'm going to go with Ramondre Stevenson. I think the Chargers secondary is very underrated. I think the Patriots are really going to need to run the football a bunch in order to take control of this game. So give me Stevenson.
All right, Rick?
Yeah, Herbert hasn't won a playoff game in 6 years. I think the Patriots have had a pretty easy schedule going into the playoffs, but I just think they're going to lean heavily on Henderson and Stevenson, and I think they're going to win pretty easily.
All right, and I'm going the opposite way. Oh, who's your player, Rick?
Oh, Henderson and Stevenson.
Oh, both of them. So
Both
you're not
of
going
them.
to choose one.
No,
You're
I
doing
can
that to
vote
me
one.
again.
Yeah.
That's inexcusable.
Okay.
Inexcusable.
I'm going to go with the upset special here. I'm going with the Chargers because I like Harbaugh better than I like Vrabel as a statistician, tactician. I think for an individual game, Harbaugh gets his troops up. I think Vidal is an excellent running back. If Hampton plays, you got two backs in San Diego that can both get it done. But I'm going for sentimental reasons. My first NFL player interview as a fantasy guy was Keenan Allen when he came out as a rookie. And so he's going to be my impact player. He's getting towards the end of his career, but he's still putting up good numbers. I love Keenan, and I'm expecting him to make at least one critical play in this game to turn the tide for the Chargers. Back to Howard for Houston at Pittsburgh.
Oh, stuck in the mud on this one here. You know what? I'm gonna go with the Houston Texans here. I love their defense. It's just absolutely spectacular. Steelers D at home is usually pretty good, but I just think that this is gonna be another low scoring, kind of stuck in the mud kind of a battle here. I just don't think that the offensive line for Pittsburgh, or Aaron Rodgers and his lack of mobility are going to be able to withstand this pass rush. So I'm going to take the Houston Texans here, and my player for this game here is going to be the Houston Texans defense.
I would have gone with them if you hadn't taken them. Good choice. Rick?
Yeah, because you look at those defensive ends that the Texans have, and I think one had 15 sacks, the other one had 12 sacks. I think Rodgers is going to be on the ground a lot. I do think that this is going to be a game where the Texans should be able to win. I look at the Pittsburgh offense. I don't see, maybe Kenneth Gainwell might have a game, but the player I'm actually looking forward to seeing more of during this game, I think he's going to be the difference maker, is Schultz, the tight end for the Texans.
Okay, well, I'm going, as I said, I would have taken the Houston Texans defense because if I recall correctly, they've only allowed one top 12 quarterback fantasy game this year, and that was to Jacoby Brissett. That was it. Everybody else has been held outside the top 12 at quarterback. I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to do all that much against that defense. Defense travels. I think Houston wins this. I don't think it's a close game. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. Since I got to choose a different player, I hate doing this.
I don't know.
I'm going to give a shot to Woody Marks. I keep waiting all year. I've been waiting for him, so maybe he does it in the playoffs. But I would have gone with the Houston defense, but Howard took him first, so I can't.
If you want the Houston defense, I'll throw out a little shout out to Kaimi Fairbairn.
Okay, that
was
kicker.
This will be a kicker's battle with Fairbairn
and Boswell, right?
Boswell, so yeah.
Well, that works. Now, Howard, thank you for coming on. All right. If ever there's anything I can do for you, you just ask. You know that, right?
Very much.
Need a place to stay in Austin? You got it.
Appreciate that.
You got my number. Call me. I'm serious. Folks, Howard, where can they find your work? And again, tell them again how to subscribe to your website.
All right. fantasyalarm.com/radio. And that'll get you the all pro subscription. You can just go to fantasyalarm.com. We've got a ton of free content out there. Waiver wire, injury reports, all that stuff is over there available to you. But if you want to subscribe, I'll give you that promo code radio, which will take 20% off the monthly or the annual. All my work is housed over there. The majority of my work is housed over there. You can also find me on rtsports.com with a couple of articles, maybe a video or two. and you can find me in the New York Post. If you're on social media, it's at RotoBuzzGuy on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and if you're on a TikTok train there, it's at The Real RotoBuzzGuy. And gentlemen, thank you so much for having me, man. A pleasure to get to sit and just kind of talk ball with both of you guys here. An absolute pleasure.
We love you, man. That's our show for tonight. We want to thank Howard and always Rick. Rick is always a professional for us. He keeps this show classy, which saves my butt. So I want to thank you all. I also want to give a quick pitch. Get to the expo. Howard, you're going to be there this year, right?
I am doing everything I can to make sure that I am in Canton in August. Yeah, I've had like a 2-year layoff from the expo, so I got to get back.
That's where we first met, was at the expo. So yeah, get to the expo. You can meet guys like Howard. You'll meet me. I'll be there. Just get to the expo. It's well worth your time. Even if you don't do fantasy, if you're just a football fan, it's at the Hall of Fame, for crying out loud. You get a chance to go through the Hall of Fame. Join us next week when we're going to be at a regular time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to be talking about IDP, how to add IDP to your leagues. What is IDP? Where do you get information for IDP? And we've got some really good experts, Jorge Edwards, Gary Davenport, our very own Iggy. We've got a panel of 5 or 6 IDP experts coming on to help you introduce IDP to your leagues. And that's it, Iggy. Take us